All right, everybody. This is Mr. Hurwitz again with one of our continuous interviews with animators. And today we have Norman DeCarlo with us.
Mhm.
Uh, Hi, Norman. Thanks for being here with us.
Sure.
Do you have any work that you think my students might have seen of yours or the projects you worked on that they may have seen?
Very, very likely. And actually, I'm not an animator. My
Sure,
my job was all in pre-production.
sure.
Uh, I did art direction, model making, sculpture, mold making, set building, any one of a number of things that, again, were involved with the pre-production stages. I worked on a bunch of things after I left Gumby. I worked with Henry Selick specifically. I got hooked up with him very early on in his career.
Mhm.
Um, he and my studio ended up doing a lot of work for the Pillsbury Doughboy,
Mhm.
Ritz Bits with crackers, crackers with
Yeah.
cheese and with peanut butter. A lot of other commercials. And before then, we entered on to work with The Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach and Monkey Bone were the three movies in succession that he did in the San Francisco area before he moved up the road to Portland, where he did
Mhm.
Coraline and Moonbox or something. I can't remember the other.
Beat Troll Box or was it?
No, Moon something.
Oh, okay.
Moonchild, maybe. I don't know. It was a
Okay.
kind of an obscure little CG film that and didn't have any real traction.
Okay.
Um, anyway, you've undoubtedly seen my work in Nightmare Before Christmas.
Sure.
I'm the one who's largely responsible for the walking bathtub, the vomiting fountain, the mayor's car, and a
Oh,
lot
nice.
of major props that ended up populating the film. Then from there, I went on to working for Pixar, where worked on Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Monsters Inc., and For the Birds, which is the Academy Award-winning short film
Right.
done by
Yes.
Ralph Eggleston.
Great. So, as I always kind of ask everyone I interview, I'm assuming, I mean, where does your love of animation begin?
Oh, I thought I was going to be an animator as a child.
Okay.
So when I grew up and had the opportunity to work for the Gumby project, uh, everybody assumed, myself including, that I would be doing
You
animation.
say you always assumed, did you grow up like watching cartoons on television or
Yes, I
okay,
grew up with Bugs Bunny and Popeye and
sure.
uh, and Gumby too, actually, eventually. So anyway, the process always fascinated me
Mhm.
until I actually got a chance to see what animators actually did on a regular. And then I was not enamored. And that's when I was attracted to the art department, and
Okay.
I saw what they were doing, and that became my home.
So, I mean, did you go to school for animation or for art?
Nope,
Or no? Okay.
nope.
You
Just
just went straight from
serendipitously,
sort of into the industry. How did you get into the industry?
an ad in the paper.
Oh, okay.
I answered an ad in the paper, and it was for the Gumby project.
Oh, wow.
It said looking for animators, and I didn't have any experience at all. But
Okay.
at that time was also coincidentally is when the Will Vinton studio was gearing up and making their biggest splash. They were doing commercials for I can't remember what pizza company it was, but they had a character they developed called the Snoid that delivered.
Oh, the Noid or
Noid, that's it. Noid.
yeah, that was I want to say that was like Pizza Hut. I totally remember that. That was like a very 80s
Yeah,
thing.
well, the one that really caught my eye was
It's claymation, right?
The California raisins.
Oh, that too, yeah.
That knocked me out, and I didn't know what was going on with that, who was doing it, or how they were doing it, but I knew I wanted to be a part of it. So I wrote to them and asked if I could be involved, and they said, "Well, who are you? What do you do? Why don't you
Right.
think?" So I developed a sculpture of myself in caricature with on one knee and my arms spread, and I tacked a post-it note with a little voice balloon on it that said, "Give me a job." And
Nice.
they wrote back a week later and said, "You're hired." Um, basically, so they wanted me to meet at the Palace of Fine Arts here in San Francisco, where they were showing off their brand new film, the Mark Twain film.
Okay.
Uh, I can't remember the name of it. It was very very dark, and
Sure.
anyway, while I was there, standing there with my sculpture of myself, uh, foolishly in the hallway, waiting to go inside to talk to these people. Around the corner came the two guys who were basically running the Gumby show, and they took one look at me and said, "Who are you? Or, what's that?" And you're hired. So I
Sure.
didn't have to go
Great.
to Portland, and I could stay in Sausalito where they were located, and I began my career there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that like when you started animating, you were less interested in the animation part and more into the
hmm
which can you
hmm
kind of expand on that a little bit? Like what appealed to you about the art direction?
Well, as it turned out, I actually did do animation. I did it in the way of replacement pieces and parts.
Mm,
Um, at the time, there was nobody who could do replacement faces, and that became a specialty
mm,
because I became, during the Gumby experience, adept at doing sculpture work, and um, I understood a great deal about what it was that they needed
mm.
in the way of like splash sequences of a ball where they hit the water, and they needed
Right.
physical replacement pieces that they could put in there for those kinds of gags and effects, and it just ballooned out to all manner of props and visual metaphors that I could answer.
Mm. So, okay, so you got kind of, drawn more towards the art. So I think for my students, I mean, I talk about pre-production a lot, but I think it's
hmm
kind of worth kind of going over with you since that's kind of more your area. So talk about, post, Gumby, it seems like you're kind of into the sort of stop motion, physical sculpture,
hmm
or at least,
hmm
obviously when you get to Pixar, they're using your sculptures as model or as references, I'm assuming, right?
Well, no, did literally models that they at the time they didn't have three-dimensional scanning and printing.
Uh,
So awkwardly, what they did was I would create a giant head of a character that they wanted to bring into the computer, and they would draw lines on it and in both directions. And when those lines intersected all over the place, they would put a point,
right.
translate those points into the computer, creating a wireframe from which they had a basis to then begin to create Woody or
Sure.
Buzz, anybody else.
Well, can you walk us through that process? I'm assuming, you're working for Pixar. They're
Mhm.
probably bringing you like concept sketches, I'm assuming. Like this is
Yes,
what we think Woody's going to look like.
yes, they had an extensive art department, really, really, as you can imagine, talented people,
Sure.
and they could draw much better than I could. And so that was their job, and I had mine. Mine was to interpret their drawings as if they were blueprints, which
Sure.
I did. I possess an ability to think in three dimensions,
Mhm.
which is something I didn't really completely appreciate in the beginning, um, and even more so than their trained uh, art directors and so forth.
Mhm.
So anyway, my job was to interpret their front and side drawings as being maps for me to go by to create my models. Then
Sure.
that the sculptors, or rather the uh, modelers in the computer, and also the voice talent would look at for inspiration.
Got it. And I mean, for this process, since we always kind of hear about the 3D modeling and animation. What was the kind of timeline with you getting sketches versus creating the final 3D physical model?
Usually about 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay.
Sometimes a lot less because they had their own time constraints, and
Mhm.
they'd have to knock it out sooner, like in a
Sure.
couple 2 3 days. So I'm pretty fast.
Right, right. And so it sounds like you said like they would take the models and then at least use computers to kind of speed up the conversion into, right? You said they would sort of use it as a reference, kind of use grids to kind of translate the
Uh,
data
they
into
they
a.
used my giant heads as direct reference. Uh,
Mm,
they could translate that directly into usable wireframes right on the spot. The other, when I would do like character studies of various characters that they
mm,
would throw at me, then they would have to sit and interpret them by hand. But at least I had a physical model to go from that was already worked through and approved by the like all the way up through John Lasseter, who was at that time the head of the company,
right.
creative side.
And so, I mean, I mean, this is kind of a very interesting skill and a very kind of specific part of the animation process.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, how does this compare to like where you thought you might be when you got into animation, or at least, or are you just kind of like, this is where I'm doing now, this is where I'm going, I'm going to focus on this aspect. I mean, like, you know what I mean? It's kind of an interesting
I mean,
aspect.
was I disappointed?
No, no, not that. I just mean like, because it sounds like you didn't have a sculpture background per se, right?
No,
Or
I didn't.
and then
I
you're
didn't.
kind of getting into
I
this,
discovered on the Gumby project that I could sculpt.
yeah.
I
And
mean, I
so,
was hired. I was a graphic designer, package designer, all advertising art director, all manner of
yeah,
things.
sure,
So that when I came to the table at Gumby, yeah, I had no physical sculptural skills at that time, but I watched people who were doing it.
sure.
I thought I could do that, and they said, "Okay, well, let's go ahead, do something," and
Right.
I
So
would.
that was a
And,
skill you built and
and
were
then
able
I
to use it.
started to knock it out quickly, and they would give me more and more work, and
Yeah,
that's how that developed.
sure. Um, I mean, do you have any kind of fun stories from the I mean, you worked at Pixar for many years. I think you worked at it says you worked on robots, which was, oh, I can't think of that was Blue Sky, right? Right? Or,
Well, that was an oddball situation. I worked on robots. I think even before it had a title. It was a small company in Berkeley that was a startup, basically.
okay.
When I walked in the door, there were maybe 30 people, uh, mostly on computers. It didn't have any kind of a physical art department.
Right.
That's the truth of that was also true of Pixar. They didn't have any kind of a facility for me, so I ended up having to go to my studio in San Francisco to actually accomplish the work and then bring it back to them. And
Sure.
that's what happened there too. I ended up doing work for maybe the first six characters, including the main characters, of course. And anyway, they couldn't afford, I guess, to keep going with my kinds of services. I don't know why, but that's what they determined. And then shortly afterwards, they folded,
Right.
and then Blue Sky bought them.
Oh, okay.
They
Got
bought the property,
about the property, right?
and then took it over and then brought it to New York or wherever they are and developed it from there.
Sure.
So like on that film and on Mars Attacks, for example, my work was so early on that I wasn't given credit on the the credit roll at the end of the film.
Oh, okay. That's too bad.
But I ended up getting posthumous credits basically.
Right. I mean, you have a very interesting job. I don't think I've talked to someone who's specifically like a modeler for these. How do you think, is there any sort of aspect that you think you learned or did to do this for? I mean, like, I guess the question I'm trying to say is like, what did you do, or is there any kind of what did you do to give the characters that animation feel when you're working on them? Because like, I've done sculpture work, but that's like you're not trying to make it feel animated. You're just trying to sort of map proportions or whatever. Like, do you feel like you would take on this task of a certain way because you knew it was being animated, or
Well,
not? Or I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything.
well, Well, there's two in stop motion. There's two ways of doing sculpture. There was one that was character sculpts, as in
Mm,
maquettes, where you
yeah.
were simply trying to broadcast the intent of what the character is supposed to be like in the film. And
Mm,
the other way is a completely neutral, arms spread out so that we can mold it and then cast up characters that then can be used within the film as puppets.
mm, got it.
So my job in the beginning was to create maquettes. That I did a lot of that work, especially at Pixar.
Sure.
Uh, but that was again mostly all mapped out for me by people whose job it was to create the artwork that I drew my work from.
Sure, sure.
But invariably, my personality came through
Mm,
into the sculpture. Nowadays, that's completely avoided because nowadays they do, of course, 3D printing directly from the drawings that the art directors would create, and that's what's coughed out, and it has nothing to do with a middleman like me.
sure. Um, I mean, since you kind of work more in the stop motion, even though 3D is not physical, I still kind of say 3D is actually closer to stop motion than it is to 2D. Is there an aspect of that kind of stop motion 3D animation that you like more than say a 2D traditional animation, like the ones you grew up on, like the Popeye or
Oh,
Bugs Bunny?
completely. I became intoxicated by the whole idea of being able to feel and light and stage and
Hmm,
you know maneuver characters and objects and so forth. It was wonderful, and
sure.
everybody else who worked on it felt the same way. They were just totally enamored by uh, the idea of being able to feel and touch the thing without this barrier of the screen in front of you.
Right, right. Sure. They get that physical touch and that
Yeah.
even in stop motion, there always is that sense of like, I mean, not to say 3D doesn't have it, because obviously it does. And 3D programs are basically physics machines that happen to
Mhm.
make animation. But it's like, the real shadows, the real depth,
Yeah. Yeah.
in really well drawn, solid drawing from like
Hmm.
Popeye or whatever, there's always, you look back at like those, Christmas ones from the 70s or,
Yeah. Rankin
there's that
Bass.
kind of organicness to it that I think people really always enjoy that you didn't quite get out of a Disney film or something like that. Even,
Correct.
yeah. So, um, okay. So you worked for them for many years. Where do you feel that animation is going? This is kind of something I always ask the people I interview. Where do you feel like the future of animation is going? It can either be small scale or large scale or just in general. So kind of your own, opinion on.
I'm having, and everybody I think is having real trepidations about the future of animation because of the influx of AI and what
Sure.
what it's what is turning out to uh, mean in terms of what people are turning out for product.
Sure.
It's been my experience that the client in general will always go for the cheap route, the quick
Sure.
route, the easy route. And in that regard, I think we're in trouble because AI will satisfy that. It'll give
Sure.
them, oh, it's not what we want completely, but it'll do. It's okay. We'll take it.
Right.
And so that's what I'm fearful of.
Of less money going towards animators, cheaper
Well,
productions.
less work in general
Yeah. Okay.
being cut out of the process because um, you know they're they're interested in different things. We're
Sure.
interested in the aesthetics of animation and trying to deliver a certain kind of level of product, and often they're not.
Right. Yeah, I know. I always tell my students it is called the film industry or
Yeah,
business.
precisely.
It's a business, regardless of,
Hmm.
they like to think of film and art as like this something that stays separate from capitalism, but it is only so much,
That's
At the end
right.
of the day, bottom line usually wins out in most situations.
Hmm.
Um, What would you say? So, my students are coming at, they've finished maybe like an intro level class of animation, maybe in 2D. They've done the whole 12 principles,
Hmm.
the thing. What advice, or do you have advice for students who, are interested in kind of pursuing either animation as a career or at least as a elevated hobby, or maybe they, put stuff on YouTube or submit to festivals? Like, do you have any advice for those people?
Sure, it's always been the same. I've got students of my own right now too,
Mhm.
and I always tell them basically the same thing, that what fellow teachers want and what will employers will seek from them is passion,
Sure.
real passion. If they've got it for the work, it'll show. And if they're approaching it with a half-hearted attempt, that's also going to show.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree that, passion is something, yeah, I always do tell my students, usually the ones who, I mean, I feel like in the last 20 years, especially with like, 3D becoming kind of the new
Hmm.
kind of major form of animation, it's like everyone worries about this program or that program, and not to say like, knowing the tools isn't useful, but I'm always kind of like, you can always learn the tools. Like anyone can learn the tools if they really
Right,
want to. But you can't teach passion. You know what I mean? That has to come from within. Like I can, I can teach you whatever I can teach you, or you can watch whatever YouTube tutorial you want to
hmm,
watch.
hmm.
It's not going to teach you to want to do this and spend
That's
your
correct.
time honing your skill and spending all the time, because it's like if you're looking to make money, that's not what animation's about. Like, not to say it's not a career, but if like you're looking for easy money, I wouldn't say animation is the way to do it. You have to come into it with a passion and a
Hmm.
desire to, do it and build your skills and have a general love for it, because
Hmm.
there are times it may not be as easy as you think. And if you don't have that love, it's easy to want to, leave and do.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you that, passion is definitely
Key ingredient.
key ingredient for any, anything in the arts in general, but yes, animation included.
Well, yeah, I mean they're just too it's just too difficult. The process of animation and any job having to do with it is
Sure.
just simply too difficult to take half-heartedly.
Well, great. I think that's, yeah, those are usually the general kind of overview. Do you have any kind of like websites or social media you'd like to share with my students who maybe want to touch, see your work or get in touch with you or anything like that?
On my website, you can publish it if you wish.
Yeah, I'll put it in the link when I do it.
Sure, sure. And it's just a synopsis of what I've done in my past. It's not meant to be a competitive website
Sure, sure,
which you were trying to get a job from. Uh,
sure.
it's just simply so that my students have an idea of who I am and where I've been. That's really about it.
Yeah, I'll include that. Okay, great. And if they have, do you have social media or not that students can contact, or is it through the email?
My Facebook account was hacked so many times I just gave up.
Okay,
I have a presence on Instagram even though I don't keep it up either because
sure.
yeah, I'm not I'm not competing.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. Okay, well, we appreciate your time, and I think my students learned a lot, especially because I think, I've talked to a lot of different animators, but you kind of have a specific skill set that
Right.
doesn't normally come up, so it's interesting to sort of hear about that kind of area and
Yeah,
things.
I tell my students that there are so many different kinds of jobs
Sure,
in the film industry, and they're just walking into an animation course uh, might expect, like I did, that I would be an animator one day, and it's just absurd to expect that uh, they're all going to end up being animators. It's just not going to happen. Uh,
sure,
and so many different people end up doing other different things, like even producing or editing or yeah, or in the art department, like myself. Uh,
sure.
so That's something that you should expose your students to, I think, is the variety of choices that are available.
Yeah, that like there are many ways to be involved in the project.
Right,
You came
right.
in wanting to be an animator, but you found a specific
The credit roll at the end of a
skill that
film.
you really enjoyed, and that was a very important part of the animation process, even if it wasn't the like literal animating part. But
Right.
like obviously your characters needed to be created so that they could,
Mhm.
it's all part of the process. Like when you
It's,
work on an animation, it's like there's no one, I mean, unless it's a small independent animation that you're doing,
mhm,
there's so many people. You're all
mhm.
part of this project. You're a team working on this project. So there's many people on the team, and it doesn't all have to be in the same,
That's right.
same area. So yeah, I agree with you fully on that. I think that's a good point to bring up. All right. Well, we appreciate your time.
Thank you, David.
Take care.
Good luck to you.